Now let's properly introduce our guest. So Elyse brings with her over 2 decades of both client and agency expertise. She is an out-of-the-box, forward-thinking leader with a highly contagious, energetic, and entrepreneurial spirit. Over the years, she's worked for local, national, and international brands such as Cirque du Soleil, Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, BRP, Metro, and Danone. Her work has been recognized in numerous strategic, creative, and interactive marketing competitions in Canada and abroad, such as Strat Awards, Cassie's, the Dieline Awards, Global Pack Leadership Awards, Idea and Best Supplier of the Year Awards by Danone. Elyse, wow, that's quite the resume. She currently oversees a team of fearless brand designers and communication specialists in Toronto, Montreal, and Mexico City. Again, thank you so much for being here today. Our second speaker today is Martin, a creative force, a business strategist. As I mentioned, Martin and I worked very closely together on the CHFA Now rebrand, so love working with him. And I can say firsthand, he definitely knows how to bring magic to any project without staying really grounded in his recommendations and data and insights. Martin oversees a team of dedicated communication professionals and has proven his leadership on a wide array of projects, from naming to packaging to full 360 communication campaigns. His 15+ years of experience at Aradia Health, FCB, Sid Lee, and Pigeon enable him to work with fantastic brands such as Listerine, HomeSense, BQA, the Wine Marketing Association, President's Choice Financial, TD Canada Trust, Grupo Bimbo, Corby Spirits, my gosh, Martin, and the Green Organic Dutchman. You guys have amazing resumes. We are so excited to hear what you have to teach us today and your expertise. So I'll hand it over to you guys and can't wait to learn a little more on brand strategy.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone, and we're super happy to be here today. At Pigeon, we're all about making brands come true. So from the very inception of taking a project in and to bring it all the way to the final expression, we've done it all, and we also love to be with the brand all the way into executing into various channels. So before we get started and diving into the case study today, we want to share with you just a very quick video that shows a little bit of our recent work and gives you a bit of a flavor of who we are. So I'm just going to get into that now, and then we'll kick things off right after. Fantastic. So when we're thinking of like our approach, how do we make a brand come true? So anytime that we kick off any project, we always like to use our strategic model, which you'll see in a second, to investigate the challenge, right? So fairly simple in terms of the model. We always use this to approach any project. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. This is what we use to make a brand come true. So at the onset of any project, we always think of this as it's not a design exercise right from the get-go, right? No matter what, it's always a strategic one that we then translate into a story, which can be expressed later on through visuals and through storytelling and messaging. So we always start off by reviewing the category truth, the consumer truth, the cultural truth, and the brand truth. And what we do is it helps us to identify any type of white space opportunities for the brand. How can the brand stand out from the crowd? So for us, we always see truth like rocket fuel. For us, it's always, it ignites creativity and brings you the brand or your service into places you've never even imagined before. All right. So if the strategy has been developed and it doesn't necessarily stick, we firmly believe that it's not true and it's not necessarily tapping into that moment of truth that will resonate with a consumer. So a brand's first tangible engagement with consumers is usually packaging, whether it be online or on shelf, right? So that very first moment they connect with the brand will define if the consumer will pick up and then buy and love and then recommend the brand over and over and over again. And for us, there's no truer KPI than that. So today we're going to walk you through the strategy that led to the creation of Nordic Milk. It was a concept that was based on terroir, sustainable agriculture, and a unique traceability claim that helped Nutrinor and their dairy lineup achieve double-digit growth. You may be asking yourself, if you don't already know, who is Nutrinor? Well, they are a cooperative based out of La Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean in Quebec, if you didn't pick up on the accent there. They've been around since 1949, and they have over $600 million in total revenue and over $250 million in assets, with over 1,000 members and almost 1,000 employees. They're a pretty strong force within the Quebec space, but more specifically in La Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean. What's really interesting about this is that they are very small in the grand scheme of things, but based out of that area, they're incredibly well known. Today, we're going to be focusing on Nutrinor's dairy segment. Although they play in other areas, we're going to be talking just about dairy. As I mentioned, they're very popular in their home region. So popular, in fact, there's like 90% awareness of their brand. When you start to go outside of that area in Quebec, the awareness drops much lower, and it's even more so than that when you go into other provinces, right? So as you can imagine, they had this unique challenge to conquer new markets, and they had to really make themselves known, right? So in order to accelerate growth. So when we're looking at the challenges, it's a very commodity specific category. The competition is fierce with really big players, and every day there's new competition coming into play with the plant-based beverages. So we were set out to create differentiation, bring added value to the consumers, and then help the brand be purchased, loved, and recommended. So after we did, we used our model that I showed you earlier on. We reviewed all what we did is we set up to review the brand truths and the category truths, and ultimately develop a strategic approach to encapsulate Nutrinor's distinction and give the brand that unique and unified voice that would be relevant for the brand as well as consumers, and help to define that USP. So I will pass over to Elyse, who will go and bring you up to speed and give some background on what we did.
Hi, everyone. So as Martin was saying, Nutrinor is a great brand, extremely well known in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, with over 90% awareness, but it drops down to barely nothing in other regions. So 6% in the rest of Quebec. So a leader, but barely existing everywhere else. When we looked at the project at the beginning, we looked at their whole portfolio, and what really struck us is that lack of consistency. And a lot of brands do that. You often develop a product, then a new one and a new one, and you work a bit in silo. So lots of disparity between all of their product lineup. The other thing, and you're going to see it right after, they had a lot of great claims, but you can barely see it. So not seen nor understood. Those claims were barely nothing to the consumers and meant nothing. But the exciting part for us is that this brand and this company adds such an amazing story to tell. We had a lot to work with. In 2007, they launched the Nordic Agriculture. It was the foundation of everything that they were doing. They were the first to add probiotics in milk, and they really started working on sustainability back in 2009, whereas we know a lot of companies are just starting now. Then in 2014, they launched their organic Nordic Milk. An amazing news that was barely noticed by anyone, unfortunately. They had all of those programs with cohorts at the farm, but in 2018, it became a real thing. They really wanted to become a global leader in sustainable agriculture. And they did that, they actioned it through a pact. So the Sustainable Agriculture Pact that everyone had to sign in. So it's a co-op again. So we're talking about members, engaging those members into that great vision that the co-op had. So action in it for real. So we started the project in 2021 with the first milk products from sustainable agriculture. We're looking at a specific region where it comes from. We have 90 farms behind it. And we're looking at a co-op that is truly believing in it because they're investing in it. When we talk about the category, you know, in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, Nutrinor is big, but when you're seeing those big players on the left side of the page, you can see that they're playing against way bigger players than themselves. But looking at that category, we found that it was a bit homogeneous, traditional, almost generic. Everyone was saying the same thing, and the look and feel was not very differentiated. But something was at play here within the category because, those challengers were coming in really hard with a new proposition from the plant-based beverage using a completely different look and feel, a more dynamic, fun, and accessible tone that would be changing the rules of how you purchase milk or other beverages, because you cannot look at only milk. You have to look at what the category holds in terms of offer for the consumer. And talking about the consumer, we're not going to go into details here, but through research and through all the trends, and something that everyone knows, but we need to keep in mind, is consumers are really looking for better for you food. One thing that really stands out as well is the trust and transparency aspect of things. People are looking at this, they're inquiring about it, and they also want to know the origin of the ingredients that they're ingesting. It's all about local and now even regional purchase. But all of that, of course, you still need to have a good product that consumers are going to enjoy. And then looking at consumer, it's a good thing, but you still need to look at the culture around you, because where your brand is at play, other forces are at play too. When we're talking about sustainability and transparency, we're finding that there's a lot of change happening. People are looking more than ever to have a positive impact, and they want the truth. Because a lot of Canadians believe that there is still time to turn the tide on climate change, and consumers think that that change is going to be done by brands. No one is relying on our governments anymore, so the brands are in charge. So you need to think about it when you're putting your brand out there. Consumers are expecting a lot from you, and especially Gen Z and Gen Y, because for these generations, to share the values of the brands they embrace is extremely important. We're looking at stats as high as 76% or 73%. So knowing all that, we needed to encapsulate Nutrinor's difference and make it stand on shelf and online. So we started with putting together some brand pillars that could together make it a brand that would be inimitable. So they had a unique terroir. They were 100% traceable, one of the first to come up with something like that. They had a real commitment to sustainable agriculture and not only greenwashing. And the milk they produce comes from free-range cows. So again, a very rich story to tell, but we need to put all those pillars together so that storytelling is meaningful for the consumers. So how did we make it happen? We started by revitalizing their brand based on their all of these unique features we talked about. And we wanted to create a very coherent and distinct look and feel that would be fun and accessible to play against all these new entrants that were coming in the category. When we're talking about CPG brands, the first expression of the brand is often the packaging. So we needed to be very compelling, and we needed to express that unique and true story. We saw before that the Nordic Milk was not something new to Nutrinor, but it was never expressed in a consumer-facing storytelling. So what is Nordic Milk? It's produced entirely north of the 48th parallel in a rich terroir that is geographically protected, 100% traceable through sustainable agriculture and free-range cows. So again, that fun and accessible look and feel. So if we look at the before and after, before it was nice, but a bit Me Too, very generic. So we gave Nutrinor a unique personality. And let's look at what it means. So we're talking about consistency here. I think you can see what I was talking about. So really from one product to the other, of course, the navigation is there. Of course, the brand personality is there, and it's very consistent. And when we talk about the packaging strategy, as Martin was outlining at the beginning, it's not only about cute design. It's about design that really sells. So we created a proud brand, a consistent platform from one segment to the other, like having one brand, one voice, not different products everywhere. We created brand icons with our friendly cows. So you can see that they help the navigation here. And we used also color to help facilitate the shoppability. The brand attributes and the benefits are very clearly communicated, and it's a visual statement. It's a bit polarizing, that design, but that's something that we wanted to achieve through a true and meaningful story. But packaging is nothing if you don't talk to the consumers about what they want to know about your brand. So consumers want to know about the engagement towards sustainable development. You want to put forward your owners, farmers, co-op initiative, because that's something that really helps you differentiate. You want to put forward also certification, allegation, and logos if you have some, and all that beautiful storytelling that we were seeing before. So you're using all of the real estate of the packaging in a fun and engaging way. And if we look more specifically about the traceability on the next slide, Martin, we have a claim that is absolutely unique. So we worked with Nutrinor at putting it on pack through a QR code. Yes, QR codes are back. We couldn't have never said that a few years before. But through that QR code, you are able to know where your milk comes from, where, like, which farm, basically, when it was produced. So it's a very unique feature that really speaks to today's consumers, because they want to know about the food that they're ingesting. Mm-hmm. And then, that's the real test. You can look at any design on a white page or a blue page in this case, but the real test is on shelf and online. So if we look at the before here, let's look at the after. Completely different. Whether you like it or not, for sure, you see it. So Nutrinor is at the forefront. It's proud. You understand that there's something there. It piques your curiosity, and you want to know more. And if we look about the consistency of all that, of course, it's everyone's dream to have a shelf like that. But in Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, when we were saying they were the true leader, it's an actual real shelf. And we see it through the navigation of the different products on the next page, Martin, where you can see whether you're in a pint, you're in a different format. It looks like the same brand is talking to you. So all of that is absolutely fabulous. And just through packaging, you can achieve a lot. But the objectives were a bit aggressive here, and we needed to introduce Nutrinor to a new consumer in a more urban setting. So Nutrinor was not only talking to the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean crowd now. It was talking to the Montreal crowd. It was talking to all the different regions in Quebec. So how do we introduce it? With a budget, a marketing budget that is way lower than any competitors. Here's how we did it. So we tried to put together a proposition that was just piquing the curiosity of the consumers. So the Nordic Milk is coming to town. So that proud brand again with the farmer behind it and showcasing the packaging, so the brand attribution and the brand recognition would be instantaneous. And we did a lot of play on words here. We're changing the world one pint at a time. So a lot of wording and storytelling, very rich again, to talk about that amazing proposal that we're giving the consumer. So milk that is 100% traceable is arriving in town.
Again, it's not the same messaging repeated over and over. It's all laddering back up to the same story arc, but it was crucial to diversify and tell all those parts of the story, as you can see.
And through all the different mediums, of course, we had a lot of out of home, but we revamped their website, really again, laddering back to that very rich story. So people can trace back the origin of their milk, and digital, of course. That one is so hard to translate. On vous fait boire du pays. We're allowing you to drink the country. It's a play on word in French, and it sounds great.
It's a great, I think that's a great example of not just doing a direct translation of your campaign, but leaning into the local colloquialisms that are important or that would resonate, especially in the Quebec market.
And especially when you're talking about a local brand that wants to showcase that is local and it's coming from here. So it's a great way to use that language and make sure that you're well understood, and you create that little smile on people's face when they read. So did it work? Of course, if we're showing it, it worked, but it worked very well. So I love this photo. It worked out great. A bit too great at the beginning, but at the end of the day, by year end, we achieved great results on the metric that we had set forward at the beginning. So we increased the distribution in those new markets. First thing first, the buyers is your crowd, but against consumers, 3 times awareness by 1 year, and a plus 17% increase in sales. So a great result for this first year of launch.
But that's not all. It goes into 2022, and again, you know, the first year there was a lot of focus on delivering those core messages, but going into this year there was more focus on traceability specifically. So as you can see here, we have some out-of-home examples where we're really hitting the head on the nail. You know, this says trace back the origin of your milk, and we have some other examples here. Behind every pint, there's a local farm trace back the origin of your milk. We firmly believe in traceability. So here, ferme is a play on words or a double entendre of firmly. So again, playing into the local colloquialisms. That's a mouthful. And then you can start to see here as it starts to extend into various executions that really, all the brand assets and elements and the brand personality coming to life. So you can really see like it's coming together in all the different touch points. And again, we have digital Facebook ads, and we also have some digital ads as well. So if we are to summarize some key takeaways from today, you have to reframe your thinking. It's not a design exercise, it's a strategic one. You need to uncover your brand truth and create a unique and authentic narrative that is meaningful for the consumer, culturally relevant, and makes your brand stand out in the category. It's okay to break the rules, where it counts specifically. As you saw in some of the examples for shopability, there was consistency there, but while you have, when you're leaning into those rules, it's okay to deviate because that might actually help you stand out. And then of course, shout it out. If you're unseen, you're unsold. Just having your product on shelf is great, as Elyse mentioned, but it's almost like taking it just before the finish line. You have to tell people where it is. And there's so many different ways that you can do that and scale it out or phase it out, but very important to tell that message. So,
and even if you have sometimes a smaller budget, there's always a way to optimize it. So you're sold because you're seen.
Exactly. Thank you.
Wow, Martin, we were good. We went fast.
We went through that.
You went through it, but so much great information. And for anyone who joined a little bit late, just a reminder, we are taking questions now. So you can pop your question into the chat box, which is at the top right of your screen. But we do have some questions that came in as well through a private chat. So I'm just going to pop over there 2 quick seconds. So the first one for you guys. So Nordic is a fairly large company. Do you have any recommendations on where to start with brand strategy, for smaller brands just starting out, or specific channels that you would maybe recommend focusing on?
Well, Nutrinor is a fairly large company, but they play in way different areas. So in terms of dairy, they're not that big. They're becoming bigger now, but they're not that big. So when you're a small company, as Martin was saying at the beginning, at Pigeon, that's the way we do things. We might not have the truth, but we try. We always start every mandate the same way, and it's a strategic one. So before asking yourself the question, where can I play in terms of the mediums that I use, you really need to pull back and say, okay, what's my strategy? What are my brand pillars? What am I trying to get across? And there are ways to extend the different claims that you want to make, like we did for Nutrinor, but you noticed like it was very consistent through the imagery. So for sure, digital, you cannot go away from it. It's the #1 medium today. There are ways really to optimize your presence there. But depending on your products, depending on how people shop it, because there's the mindset of consumers as well. So what's the consumer journey when they think about your product? So it's a very hard question to answer just generically like that, because the mindset in which your consumer is going to be different if you shop for gum or if you shop for veal, for example. So veal being a more expensive product that requires a bit of preparation, whereas the other is something that you're just going to shop like that. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy this pack.
Totally.
It jumps at me just before the cash. So hard one.
Yeah, but I think you hit on something. It doesn't matter the size of the company. Be strategic, start there. And Martin, you kind of said it at the end of the presentation. It's not just design. You want to have it rooted in something deeper than that. So I think it's a good place to start from. Actually, I don't know if you guys have an answer for this, but curious, do you ever work with sustainable packaging, or do you ever make recommendations, especially if you are building out a brand story around, sustainability and traceability? Is that something you guys recommend, or how do you break into that?
Great question.
Absolutely. Martin, you want to talk about it? I have a lot of answers.
Well, how about you start first, and I'll add on if I have to.
Okay. So yeah, we at Pigeon, we have several specialists that really know all about sustainable packaging. There are ways to do it, but one thing for sure, people think it's easy, or consumers expect a lot from the brands, but we totally understand it's not easy. You have to completely redo your production area. So there's a lot at play here, but for sure consumers are gonna reward you. And at Pigeon, we believe that one little step is better than nothing at all. So for example, a few years back, we worked with Danone at removing the overwrap from the Oikos brand. So just a bit less packaging. We worked with Lassonde, for example, on their first paper straw, how we would communicate it to the consumer when they start with it. We are currently working on different other things that I cannot talk about, but some are more like revolutions. But another example is we work with Dainty. For example, they're still in a plastic pouch, but they're using only one type of plastic instead of different types of plastic. So then it becomes recyclable. We worked with last example.
Yeah.
We worked also with Monpac International, which is a veal producer that became a family fontaine. And we worked with together with the client and Cascade, who produced, how do you say that, Martin, in barquette?
Like the tray, the plastic basket? Yeah.
That was not only recyclable, but that came from recycled material. So there are so many areas, and for sure we can help you with that if ever you need it.
Yeah, I would also like to build, it's not necessarily like a quick answer, because there's a lot of different components that are involved in terms of sourcing the right materials, working with your operations to make sure that it could be executed or even phased into over a period of time. That there's different ways to approach it, and of course, there's cost-effective ways of doing it. But we understand that if you have a small plant, there's different parts of machinery that have to be considered. So there's a lot of conversations that happen around that to make sure what we're offering or what we're suggesting is not just a pretty design or an option, but you have to have all the right people who are involved at all the different stages brought together in the same room, and that's usually the most effective way of doing that. And
lastly, on that subject, when you do surveys, most people will tell you that they are willing to pay more for sustainable packaging. But in the real life, and especially right now with the inflation that is ramping up like crazy, the difference needs to be very small in your pricing strategy. So that's why I'm saying you'd rather make a small step, one step at the time, than a big revolution that's going to drive the price of your products way higher, and that's going to discourage the consumer to consider you.
But I think that's a great reminder. You don't need to be all the way to bright to have an impact. You can start small and test and build, and as technologies change, or as you can reduce outer sleeves or whatever, it all adds up. So I think those are some great suggestions. Another one is around greenwashing, and I know you mentioned that term. So how do you build trust and hope that the consumer doesn't think that you are just playing into hype? Obviously, the environment is very top of mind for a lot of consumers right now. So how do you build that trust with the brand?
Oh, I love this one so much. Stop using terms that are not substantiated, first and foremost. I think consumers now are way more observant, and they're reading labels, they're looking at ingredients, they're looking at the claims, they're trying to find out where the products are coming from, and they're more price conscious. So when it comes to greenwashing, they're just to say you're organic, they're looking for those specific certifications to make sure that yes, this is in fact a reputable company that has gone through the rigor of ensuring that everything is tested. So and it also passes those certifications as well. So I would say, don't claim anything that is not substantiated right out of the gate. We see a lot of different terms of saying like, it's better, or better for the environment. Like, just strip that out. I'd rather not see that, and because then you don't get caught by saying something that you shouldn't be saying. So only use claims that are substantiated and that have validity behind some trusted organizations, I would say.
And if your claims are not substantiated online on your website, then don't use them at all either, because there's your packaging, there's your website is, at the end of the day, the end line for the consumer who really wants to know. And you need only one consumer that goes there and that sees something that doesn't have a lot of backbone behind it to lose all the trust. So again, you need the trust, and there's always a way to say things that stay true to exactly what you're doing, and that can be appealing to the consumers without lying about it.
And there's nothing wrong either to say that we're working towards something, and then putting your goals out there to say we're working towards these goals, and make sure that you follow through with them. But to at least let consumers know that you are working towards something is a better step than not necessarily providing accurate information.
I think that's a great point too, and it's kind of a larger trend we see even like on social media and things like that. It's less about this perfect, it's more about the journey. So being honest, being open to where you want to be and where you actually are, I think is a really great call out. And as well, you were talking about the QR code. I think consumers are hungry for more information and they want to know more. So to build out that story more than what you can just say on pack, and really let people behind the curtain, and show them that you can back up your claims, I think is another good call out as well that you guys brought to the table.
Yeah, and especially like on a milk packaging, you do have a lot of real estate, I have to say, but with smaller ones, the QR codes is even more exciting because it allows you to say way more without having that real estate that's way bigger.
Yeah. One more. I was going to ask another question, but I saw one pop through on my little feed. There's so many remarkable Quebec brands like Nutrinor that failed to build the same success nationally. Excuse me. What are your secret sauce for QC CPG brands to grow into the rest of Canada? Great question, Larry. Thank you.
Oh wow, secret sauce.
I think it goes back to the model, right? I think it's important to not just, you got to look at all your markets, right? It's that being culturally relevant is not necessarily just in one culture, but you got to look at all the areas that you're playing, where your consumer is living. So, you might have a brand truth that is true in one area, but I would also push that further and say you need to look at where you're going to be and really assess what matters market by market. I think that's a really, really important thing that sometimes we lose sight of in the world of marketing, but it's important to know if you're going to be in these different areas, what resonates, because what might be a very great call out in Ontario may not necessarily resonate in the East Coast. So, and
I can say a little bit personally from working with you guys, it's great to have experience in English Canada, rest of Canada, and in French Canada as well, because the language, the emotional pull. I know you guys kind of touched on the words that you were really good play on words in French, but if you do a literal translation or something that falls flat in English, you don't get that same emotional pull. So I think also being really hyper aware of what that looks like in multiple markets.
And that's something very, very important, especially if you originate from English Canada. I've worked in New York, I've worked in Toronto, I've worked in Quebec. Of course, I'm from Quebec. Everyone noticed with my accent, but it's important that at the end of the day, you don't think that directly translating will do the trick. Like, there are so many examples on Facebook or Instagram of Quebecers posting direct translation that mean nothing to them. And the other thing is, once we did that for a client, the client wanted to just put a voiceover, on a TV spot for the market of Quebec. And we did put a voiceover on the French ad with English voiceover, and we played it back to the client. And the client said, "Oh my God, that's awful. That's awful. What's that?" And I said, "Well, that's what you want to showcase for your brand in Quebec." So the contrary is good as well. So going back to that secret sauce, I think it's the model. It's knowing that there are differences. And as you're saying, having partners who can play in the different markets and really understanding and valuing, it's rich that we have all those differences. If you do that, you're mostly going to succeed because you understand that it's a factor. It's a factor for the consumer. It's a factor for the shopper as well.
Yeah, knowing the nuances and just doing that little bit of extra deep dive is definitely really important. I think this is just one more question, but this one's more tactical, but you guys work a lot in the rebrand space. So after you go through a rebrand, how do you really let consumers know who you are? What are some really great best practices that you can impart to everyone?
Great question. I would say, for sure, if there's budget that allows, there's many different things that you can do, but ensuring that you have the right shopper strategy, where if you're in certain retail locations, ensuring that you're capitalizing those relationships, you're calling it on shelf that it's new, that if there's any type of couponing, there's like a lot of things that can drive awareness at the outset. Digital goes a long way because you're able to target your audience and what they're looking for based on the algorithm. So there's a lot of great things there. Just, if you don't have the big, multi-million-dollar budgets to do TV spots, there's a lot of great ways to just even banner ads, targeting. You can be more specific and more actionable with telling people, here's our new product, visit the website or buy it at the store. Like, you could be a lot more tactical if you're trying to launch something, to let people know, hey, it's new. This is what makes it different. But yeah, there's many different things. I would say definitely in store. You can look at different ways of advertising online and especially social too, where a lot of eyeballs are these days.
Yeah, but don't think social is organic anymore. Organic is dead.
Paid social. I should have said paid social.
Like it's not happening anymore. So you need to put some dollars behind what you're doing. So make sure when you create your strategy that you have those working dollars to communicate with the consumer, whether you have a more tactical in-store or Amazon Prime store, whatever. You need to tell that storytelling consistently. Don't try to do it all over with different things. It's consistency that will help your working dollars work harder for you.
Yeah, actually, when you said Amazon, it made me think it's almost like the last mile. Like, if you invest in a brand strategy, you invest in all this time and money to make something great. Invest in the money to make sure everybody knows who you are. So I think that's a good way to think about it as well. Really make those working dollars work hard for you.
And on the Amazon store or any type of digital store, like, there's so many different ways that you can amplify that experience, so that it's not just a pack shot, but really capitalize on the offerings of those platforms like Walmart and Amazon. Like, you can create a rich experience that the consumer, when they dive into it, they're not like just looking at a pack shot, they purchase it, but they can learn a little bit more about who the brand is and what it stands for. So those are always some great little opportunities to look at too.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys again. We learned a ton and amazing. Like I said, I can attest personally for everyone on the call. Again, working with these guys is amazing, but you guys are a wealth of knowledge on branding, on strategy, and really how to tell a story and bring it to life on package, in store, and in the hearts of lots of consumers. So thank you for your time. If anyone has any questions that they didn't get a chance to ask, you can pop them in the chat, but we will also be sending out an email after with the recording of this session, as well as a way to contact the Pigeon team. So thanks to everyone for joining us as we kick off CHFA Now. If you're able to join us on Thursday, we have another live session, as well as next week live in Vancouver. So check out chfanow.ca for more information and more special events. And thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks for having us.